What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Justin Davis. Today I have a fantastic review for you today of the Axis Flying MANTA 5. This is a 5-inch freestyle quad, and this is right up our alley on the channel because tons of you guys, most of you guys are into freestyle FPV, and I myself included am a huge freestyle fan. So we are going to do this review today. We're going to go out and fly it. We're going to put my Insta360 camera on there. We're going to get some awesome epic 360 video with this drone. You can also slap a GoPro on the front, and there's some things that I want to talk about in this review versus some of the other 5-inch ones out there, because mainly what you watch the channel for is to get advice on what you should buy in comparison to this drone or that drone. There are some great things about this drone versus, say, one of the most recent ones that I reviewed recently was the HGLRC Sector X5. That's a new series that came out. It's the V4 of the Sector series, brand new from HGLRC. It's around $350 with TBS Crossfire, but you also have GPS on that one. This one does not have GPS, but this one has some advantages as far as the power system goes for a longer flight time. And the first and biggest advantage about this one versus, say, the Sector X5 is the fact that this one has a little smaller motors on here, 2207, 19, I believe they're 1960 kV, and I'm getting just a little longer flight time, maybe another minute worth of flight time out of a 6S 1300 battery. So that's something to take into consideration. A little smaller motors, but it will still like pull up out of a dive, even with something as heavy as the Insta360 1R on here with that multi-lens 360 lens on there. So, you know, this is a pretty heavy camera, and even like the GoPro Hero 10, the heaviest of them all, it will recover from a nice, heavy, fast dive. So I didn't notice the camera was there that much, and a lot of times when I do flight tests for you guys, I don't fly cameras on them because I just want you to see that analog view, but today, I just had to do the 360 camera and give you something different for today's review. And I also have to report that the flight controller on board is doing very well. The tune feels really nice, and I didn't see hardly any vibes in this drone. So this is the follow-up to the X8 that they released a while back, that wild 8-motor drone that was a smaller sort of kind of an 8-motor Cinewhoop, if you will, but it didn't have a super long flight time, but it is kind of a unicorn in the FPV community. So this one is their first 5-inch release, and I think it's looking pretty good. I mean, they went safe with that long body classic design, sort of a tiny bit of stretch X. We've got the F7 flight controller right here in the middle, and 50 amp ESCs. We have a Runcam Phoenix 2 camera, and outside of the Caddx Ratel 2, this is one of my other favorite cameras as far as analog goes, but you can see they also have nice aircraft aluminum up front, and these are kind of cool. It reminds me of like diatone styling, and I feel like Axis tries to like kind of reinvent the wheel sometimes when they produce things, and I feel like with this box around the flight controller and the ESCs, there are some advantages and disadvantages to that. Number one being that you'll have to take off 4 bolts off the top of this to get inside that and access the flight controller. And once you do that, the flight controller is kind of free floating in there, so you have to kind of push it back down and have it exactly in its spot for putting the case back together. I think the other smart thing about this design, in my opinion, my professional opinion, is that it's, in a way, it's kind of scary that these stick out. But at the same time, thank God if I break one of these wires off, that I don't have to open up this whole case to solder one back down. The scary thing about losing an ESC wire, though, is if it makes contact with the frame during the crash, like this metal right here, or the carbon's also conductive, you're going to blow up the ESCs. And I've had little fires happen because of that. But I think the detail and everything in here is really great. One other thing that I'm not a big fan of is having this PCB board sticking out right here, and it might be hard to see in this review, but this PCB board sticks out right here. So if this breaks off in a crash, and there's a capacitor on both sides, this breaks off in a crash, this could be a problem, because if you have any tree scraggle come through here and pop that off, it's only suspended by a PCB board, and PCB boards are actually pretty fragile in my experiences, so you're going to have to watch these. I wish they were inside the case somehow. Maybe they extended that a little bit just to figure out how to encase that, but this might need to have some cooling as well, so it might need to have airflow. But the sides and the detail, everything here, the carbon fiber, the 3K carbon fiber, looks beautiful. Everything in here is machined, like I feel like it's machined better than HDLRC Sector 5. It's just kind of a level up from that. I feel like the front of this aircraft aluminum camera mount, it says MANTA up front, it says L right here for left side, and it has an R on the other side for right side. They even have their Axis Flying logo and stuff printed on the side of the standoffs, and they look like they're like, I don't know if they're titanium standoffs, but there's 6 standoffs total, and you have 8 bolts on top total to remove the top plate. And it looks like we have at least a 3mm top plate and bottom plate, so a nice thickness there. Now, one of the advantages of this quad versus the Sector 5, again, is that you have this classic long body here, which is the same as the Sector 5, but one advantage here is that this quad can carry a larger battery. So I could put something like a 1500 or 1600 on here, all the way to the back here. So you don't have a vertical mount XT60 back here and a GPS unit kind of coming up. So if you look at the back of the Sector X5, it has that vertical spot there, and it's kind of like making the truck bed a little bit shorter. So that's one thing to consider there. But the other thing about this is, I mean, I'm jumping back to the flight controller setup here. It's nice and plug and play as far as like being able to plug things in. It has a port for LEDs there, and there's 4, I believe there's 2 ports on this side, and I believe that there's more ports. Yeah, there's 2 other ports in the back as well, and that's your VTX wire that comes out back here to this 800 milliwatt. But one thing about that, I gotta say, I'm like, if you lose this harness or you lose one of the cables, you better have some extra harnesses laying around to plug stuff into that, because you know, the average guy wouldn't have that sitting around. And the disadvantage of that is not being able to solder down directly to the flight controller. Say these wires right here, if I wanted to open up the case and solder those down, there isn't tabs on this flight controller. So it's kind of like a standalone plug and play only type of flight controller. And then in a way, for our hobby, that's kind of a disadvantage, because you guys know DIY and you know how to pull stuff apart, and hopefully by now you know how to solder. Most of you guys do. But that's another maybe con about this one. I do like the fact that they have a nice tall long antenna. This was great, and I have to say, I feel like the video stream back to my goggles was not at all compromised with this tall antenna and me being able to run 800 milliwatt. There's only one time when I was coming around a set of trees with this video stream that coming back I saw a little bit of fuzz. So I think this is a really great VTX on here. So and again, this one is 238 millimeter, and you know, Axis Flying does great on their details. I'm just gonna like manually raise the camera up so you can see this crap right here, because this is freaking nice. When I saw the bottom of this quad, I was impressed, because this looks beautiful. I'm gonna bring this in closer so you can see this metal. There's a lot of bolts on the bottom of this holding all these arms on, so if you break those off, you're putting 12 bolts back on. Actually, let's see, 12, 13, 14 bolts to be able to remove that bottom plate, because there's 2 right here as well. So it's got quite a lot of bolts holding that on. And these arms look to be like 5 to 6 mil. They're pretty beastie. You've got TPU mounts here, one in the front, another Axis logo here. And I feel like the detail is really nice. The 1960 kV motors, for me, this is the sweet spot of the review. This quad with this power system as it sits, it has 2207 motors on here, a little smaller than the 2306. The 2306, they're on the Sector X5, and this is just going to give you a little more flight time, because they're not quite as big. So when I first pulled this out of the box, first thing I noticed was that this has much smaller motors, and they are quite a bit smaller than 2306. 2306 just look like race motors sitting there, ready to race. And this is a nice freestyle motor that will give you just a little more flight time. but will still carry something as heavy as the Insta361R. So, and these are the Nazgul series props. I'll try to put a link down below if you want to try some of these if you have a MANTA 5. But I think this is a solid release. It's been a while since I've had it. I know some of the other reviewers reviewed theirs already, but I just wanted to have a nice sunny day to fly this one. And recently it's just been freaking raining every single day, and I was finally able to really just get this one out there, have a day with it, and get a good flight in on it. And I gotta say, man, I hit 2 tree branches during this flight test with this quad, and it came back with like pieces of branch across the front. So when this thing is moving at a high rate of speed, she's got a lot of mass to her. And when it will hit like a little scraggle tree branch, sometimes you can just power through it. It's kind of awesome. So let's go ahead now and let's fly this one, and we'll come back and I'll give you a short little like a recap over the whole MANTA 5, and maybe which one you should buy in regards to this one or the Sector X5. Here we go. All right, my friends, welcome back from the flight test. Now, that was a lot of fun. I have to say the camera system, the power system, and the tune on the quad are all good. And I think this quad is going to be durable. I also think that they have a really nice looking drone. I think that the manufacturing on this one is quite sexy. It has 3K carbon fiber that's all beveled edges, and nothing is sharp. I don't have any little splinters or anything hanging out. All the hardware looks really nice. They've gone the extra mile to kind of encase the flight controller, and we'll have to see how that works out in the hotter months. Is that going to be a problem in really hot regions? That's something to take in consideration. If you live somewhere where it's kind of desert, I probably wouldn't want to fly an encased 4-in-1 ESC setup. For that, I would probably go for the Sector X5, where it has more of an open design, but it has a skirt down the side, so you still get some protection, but you're not getting rid of all the airflow. There doesn't seem to be any venting in front of this, so there's not going to be a lot of airflow through the side or the front of this type of enclosure. Where I think they also did a great job was making a tall antenna on the back for guys that really want to send this one out with TBS Crossfire. Like, I would feel comfortable sending this one up the mountain, no problem. Even though it doesn't have GPS, I feel like my signal would be just fine, because this video system that they have on here is like, it's tops at 800 milliwatt. You can get 6 miles out with 800 milliwatt, guys, easy. So yeah, you can get way out there, and that's one of the trusted VTX brands that is that VTX on the back. That's a Rush VTX. So the Rush tank, this is a tank mini. I've flown the tanks before, and they're some of my favorite. I've taken them off quads and put them on other quads because I really like that series. And again, the attention to detail is just a little bit nicer than the Sector 5. I did like the front end of the Sector 5 with the red anodized aluminum. That was cool. But again, like, this one has that like diatone styling. And for anybody who buys a bind and fly for if this is your first quad, you'd have a pretty easy time working on this. And if you're running TBS Crossfire on here, you're going to get a really nice solid signal, and you're going to have a little bit better penetration out at a distance, so, and behind things. And I feel like this is a solid release. But if you want my opinion as far as like what would be hot right now and cheaper, the Geprc Croc Baby 5 that I just had to check out the other day. Go back and watch that video. It's smaller than this quad, and this quad is kind of a different class, because the Croc 5 Baby is actually an ultralight, but you can fly that one long range. You get like a 20-minute flight time out of that one. So as far as freestyle quads go, I think this one is nice. If I was going to send it further, I'd want GPS. So as a proximity flyer, this is a pretty nice bet, and I feel like I haven't had any problems with it. And I've had this one for about a month, so I feel like it's a safe flying quad, and it's a safe entry into FPV. Or even somebody who's already experienced, you just want to pick up something that's pretty badass, because the way it sits, it is a badass quad. And we'll have some more giveaways coming up on the channel again as well. And I'm going to drop that mystery box for you guys. The $200 mystery box is probably going to drop today or tomorrow, so look out for a YouTube short for that. But I hope you enjoyed today's review and flight test. I think this one's a safe buy. I think it's a little more expensive than some of the other ones out there. But if you want something a little cheaper, again, I'm going to always recommend that Crocodile Baby 5. You'll have a good time with that quad, and it's super fun to fly. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you. Please do subscribe on the channel, and I will bring you more RC reviews on all things RC coming up on the channel, guys. Take care. I'm Justin Davis. I'll see you on the next one.